7-year-old Sophie grabbed my hand and whispered the words that changed everything. Grandma, I heard Mommy tell Daddy they're sending you away today and taking all your money for themselves. My heart stopped, but I smiled and hugged her tight while fury burned inside me like fire. My son Michael and his wife Karen had no clue they just woke up a sleeping dragon. If you're new here, welcome to Her Voice Unfolds. Hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Let me tell you how I ended up watching my granddaughter while two greedy people planned to destroy my life. 2 years ago, my dear husband Robert died in a car accident. Michael and Karen showed up at my door with crocodile tears and fake hugs. Mom, you shouldn't live alone anymore, Michael said with his arm around me. Move in with us. We'll take care of everything. What they really meant was come be our free maid and walking piggy bank. But Sophie's innocent words opened my eyes completely. While she played with her dolls in the living room, I quietly called my old friend Patricia, who worked at the bank. Patricia, it's Dorothy Miller. I need to see you right now. Can you meet me at the bank in 1 hour? Is everything all right, Dorothy? Some snakes are about to get a big surprise. Next, I called my neighbor, Mrs. Henderson. This is Dorothy. Can you do me a huge favor today? I need someone to watch Sophie for a few hours. The bank told me exactly what I expected. Between Robert's pension, my savings, and the house we owned free and clear, I had way more money than Michael and Karen knew about. Much more. I hung up the phone and looked at Sophie still playing innocently. This sweet child just saved her grandma from being robbed by her own parents. I patted her head gently. Sophie, honey, would you like to help Grandma with something very important today? She looked up with those big brown eyes. What kind of thing, Grandma? The kind that teaches people to be honest and not try to steal from others. At exactly 2 o'clock, I told Sophie we were going to visit Mrs. Henderson next door. I grabbed my purse with all my important papers inside. After Robert died, I started carrying everything important with me because something felt wrong about Michael and Karen's behavior. We walked to Mrs. Henderson's house where she was waiting with fresh cookies. Sophie ran inside happily while Mrs. Henderson walked me to her car. What's going on, Dorothy? You look upset. Some people are trying to trick me, but I'm going to trick them first. Where are we going? To make sure my granddaughter never has to worry about money when she grows up. As we drove to the bank, I thought about all the signs I had missed. Sitting in Patricia's office while Mrs. Henderson entertained Sophie with coloring books, I realized how blind I'd been to their plan. The clues were everywhere from the start. After Robert's funeral, when Michael suggested I sell my house and give them the money, I thought he was trying to help. The housing market is crazy right now, Mom. You could make a fortune, and we'd love having you closer. What he didn't say was that my monthly check would pay their bills and free babysitting would save them thousands. I sold my beautiful home where Robert and I raised our family and gave them every penny, over $500,000. I should have seen the truth then, I told Patricia as she prepared the paperwork. The way Karen's eyes got big when she heard how much money I got. The way they suddenly became so nice to me after years of barely calling. The past 2 years had been like living with wolves in sheep's clothing. Every time I mentioned getting my own apartment, Michael would make me feel guilty. Mom, Sophie needs her grandma. You're so good with kids. Besides, wouldn't you rather be with family than strangers? I was 65 years old, not 95. I could still drive, cook, clean, and obviously plan better than they could scheme. Karen had been sneakier, but just as mean. Oh, Dorothy, you're such a wonderful grandmother. Sophie is so lucky to have you teaching her. Translation: keep doing all our work while we go out and have fun 4 nights a week. The worst part was how they kept me away from my friends. You seem tired lately. We told the church ladies you needed rest so they wouldn't bother you. Your book club friends called, but we said you were too busy to chat. Slowly but surely, they cut me off from everyone who cared about me. But they made one big mistake. They thought I was too old and stupid to fight back. Patricia handed me papers to sign. This takes away their power to make decisions for you and gives it to me as your friend. This moves all your money to a new bank where they can't touch it. And this, she smiled, is your new will that leaves everything to Sophie when she turns 21. I signed my name with a big smile. What about the house money I gave them? That's the fun part. Since you have no written agreement, we can say it was a loan that needs to be paid back if they break their promise to let you live there forever. If they kick you out, they owe you every penny plus extra money for being mean. I looked at my watch. 3:15, they'd be home by 4, expecting to find their foolish old mother ready to be shipped off to Golden Years nursing home. Instead, they'd find a woman who just took back control of her life. Sophie ran into the office. Grandma, are we done with the boring stuff yet? Almost, sweetheart. Just one more place to visit. Our last stop was First Community Bank, where I'd kept my money for 30 years. Sophie sat in the kids' corner with crayons while I talked to Mr. Johnson, the bank manager. Mrs. Miller, this is very unusual. You want to move everything today? All of it? Every penny from checking, savings, and certificates to the new account at Riverside Bank downtown. Mr. Johnson's fingers clicked on his computer keyboard. That's quite a large amount of money. Are you certain about this decision? I thought about Michael's face this morning. How he couldn't look at me when he said they had errands to run. How Karen hugged me extra long like she was saying goodbye forever. How they asked me to stay home with Sophie instead of coming along, which they never did before. I've never been more sure of anything in my whole life. Moving the money took forever, $543,000 total. Robert's pension savings, my retirement money, and every dollar I'd saved for 40 years of hard work. Money they thought would belong to them once they tricked a judge into saying I couldn't think for myself anymore. Mrs. Miller, Mr. Johnson said carefully, if you don't mind me asking, why are you in such a hurry? I smiled sweetly. Let's just say some people are about to learn that grandmas aren't as helpless as they think we are. By 3:45, Sophie and I were back home. I sent her to play in her room while I started cooking their favorite meal. Fried chicken with mashed potatoes and gravy. If this was going to be my last dinner in this house, I wanted them to remember it forever. As I mixed the potatoes, I imagined the conversation they probably had this morning. The appointment at Golden Years is at 6 tonight, Michael would have said. We'll tell her after dinner. By tomorrow, she'll be locked away, and we can start spending her money. They'd probably already decided how to waste my life savings. Karen had been looking at expensive jewelry for months. Michael had talked about buying a boat, something they could finally afford with my money. They'd even mentioned a cruise to Hawaii, a trip they could take once they didn't have to watch me anymore. At 4 o'clock, I heard their car pull into the driveway. I smoothed my apron and checked my reflection in the kitchen window. I looked like a sweet old grandma making dinner for her loving family. Perfect. The front door opened and I heard their voices, louder and happier than usual. They were trying too hard, probably feeling bad about their evil plan. Mom, we're back, Michael called out. Something smells incredible in here. Just making your favorites, I called back cheerfully. Sophie's playing in her room. How did your errands go? There was a long pause. Great, Karen answered. Just busy running around town all day. I smiled to myself. In about 2 hours, they were going to discover that while they were running around town planning my destruction, I was running circles around their stupid plan. Dinner was like watching a play where the actors forgot their lines. I served their plates extra carefully, asked about their day with a big smile, and told Karen her new haircut looked nice. They wiggled in their chairs like kids caught stealing candy, looking at each other nervously when they thought I wasn't watching. This chicken is amazing, Mom, Michael said, though I noticed he barely ate anything. You really went all out tonight. Well, I wanted tonight to be special. I smiled warmly. You never know when everything might change completely. Karen almost choked on her mashed potatoes. Change? What do you mean by that? Oh, just life in general, sweetie. Nothing ever stays exactly the same forever, does it? They somehow finished dinner, though you could cut the tension with a knife. Sophie, bless her innocent heart, talked about school and her friends, completely unaware of the storm brewing around the dinner table. At 7:30, Michael cleared his throat loudly. Mom, could we talk to you in the living room for a minute? Sophie, go play upstairs while the grown-ups chat. Here we go, I thought. The moment they've been building up to all day long. We sat down in the living room with them on the couch, and me in my favorite rocking chair by the window. Michael played with his hands nervously. Karen stared at the coffee table like it might have answers. Finally, Michael took a deep breath. Mom, Karen and I have been talking, and we think it might be time for you to consider a different living situation. I tilted my head like I was confused. Different situation? You mean like getting my own little apartment? Not exactly, Jessica jumped in with a fake sweet voice. We were thinking more like a nice retirement community, somewhere with people your age, fun activities, and nurses nearby, just in case. You mean an old folks' home? It's not an old folks' home, Michael said quickly. It's a wonderful place called Golden Years. We visited today, and they have beautiful rooms, great food, and you'd love the other residents there. So you've already made arrangements without asking me? They looked at each other again. We thought we'd check it out first, Michael said weakly. I leaned back in my rocking chair, letting the silence grow long and uncomfortable. They expected crying, begging, maybe even fainting. Instead, I smiled big. Well, isn't that interesting timing? What do you mean? Karen's voice was sharp and worried. I mean, I spent a day making my own arrangements too. I pulled out my phone and called Mrs. Henderson. Hello, it's Dorothy. Could you come over right now with those papers we talked about? Yes. I think it's time to show them everything. Michael's face turned white as a sheet. Mom, what are you doing? Taking care of business, sweetheart. Just like you taught me when I was young. Mrs. Henderson will be here in 5 minutes to explain some changes I made today. You both might want to sit down. Karen grabbed Michael's arm tightly. What is she talking about? The doorbell rang exactly 5 minutes later. I opened it to find Mrs. Henderson with a big folder and a serious look on her face. Good evening, Dorothy, Michael, Karen. Mrs. Henderson, I said happily. Why don't you tell my son and daughter-in-law what we accomplished today? Mrs. Henderson sat down in the chair across from Michael and Karen, who looked like they were about to face a firing squad. Sophie had thankfully fallen asleep upstairs, so she wouldn't have to see what was about to happen. Where should I start? Mrs. Henderson asked, opening her folder. How about the legal stuff? I suggested sweetly. Mrs. Henderson nodded. As of today, Michael and Karen no longer have any legal right to make decisions about Dorothy's life or money. The papers they were planning to use have been officially canceled. Michael jumped up from the couch. Planning to use? We weren't planning anything special. Sit down, son, I said quietly. We both know that's not true. Karen's face had turned white as milk. Dorothy, I don't understand. Why would you do something like this? Because 7-year-olds hear everything, even when adults think they don't. I looked right at her. Sophie told me about your conversation this morning, about sending me away and taking all my money for yourselves. The room went so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Michael slowly sat back down, his face full of panic. Karen's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Mrs. Henderson, I continued, would you mind explaining about the money situation? Of course. Mrs. Dorothy has moved all her money to new accounts at a different bank. This includes about $543,000, which is her life savings, pension money, and the money from selling her house. You can't do this, Karen finally found her voice. That money you gave us, that money to help our family. Actually, Mrs. Henderson said calmly, I've looked at everything, and there was no written agreement. The money was given with the understanding that Dorothy would live here permanently as family. If that arrangement ends, she has every right to ask for it back, I finished, plus extra money for the trouble you've caused me. Michael put his head in his hands. Mom, please, let's talk about this like reasonable adults. You don't realize what you're doing to us. Oh, but I do realize exactly what I'm doing. I stood up, feeling stronger than I had in years. I realize that you've been planning to have doctors say I'm crazy, so you could control all my money. I realize that you've been keeping me away from my friends and treating me like your personal servant. And I realize that you've been counting money that was never yours to count in the first place. We were trying to protect you, Michael said loudly. You're 65 years old. Living alone isn't safe for someone your age. I'm not living alone. I'm living with people who see me as a walking dollar sign and free babysitter. There's a big difference between those two things. Karen leaned forward desperately. Dorothy, we can fix this misunderstanding. Maybe we didn't handle things the right way, but we really do care about you and your safety. I laughed, and it wasn't a happy sound. You care about my monthly checks. You care about free childcare. You care about my bank account, but you don't care about me as a person. Mrs. Henderson cleared her throat. There's one more important thing we need to discuss. My smile got bigger and scarier. Oh yes, the best part of all. Mrs. Henderson pulled out another folder. Dorothy has also changed her will completely. The old version left everything to Michael with some money set aside for Sophie's college. The new version makes some very big changes. Michael's face went from white to green. What kind of changes are you talking about? I decided to tell them this part myself. The kind where Sophie gets every single penny when she turns 21. You and Karen get absolutely nothing. Not $1. Karen made a sound like a wounded animal. You can't do this to your own family. We have bills to pay, a mortgage, Sophie's future to think about. You should have thought about Sophie's future before you decided to steal from her grandmother. I was done being nice and polite. Did you really think I was so stupid and helpless that I wouldn't figure out your nasty little plan? Golden Years costs $5,000 every month. You had it all calculated perfectly, didn't you? Lock me away, sell my belongings, take control of my money, and keep the extra cash for yourselves. Michael tried one last desperate trick. Mom, I'm your only son, your only child. Dad would want you to take care of your family. That was his biggest mistake, bringing Robert into this conversation. Your father, I said, my voice getting dangerous and low, worked 2 jobs for 25 years so we could save money for our old age. He went without new clothes so we could build something to leave for you someday. And you were planning to steal every penny while I was still breathing. I walked to the fireplace where Robert's picture sat and picked it up, looking at his kind, honest face. You know what your father would say if he could see you right now? He'd say I should have protected myself from you a long time ago. I set the picture down and turned back to face them. Mrs. Henderson, there's one more paper, isn't there? Mrs. Henderson nodded seriously. Dorothy has decided she no longer feels safe living in this house. Since she's basically been a guest without any written agreement, you have 30 days to find her a new place to live. 30 days to leave? Michael's voice cracked. This is our house, our home. Actually, I said, pulling out my own folder, that's where things get really interesting. Remember that $500,000 I gave you 2 years ago? I have all the bank records showing the money came directly from my account to yours to pay off your mortgage and credit cards. No loan papers were signed, but I have emails where you promised I'd always have a safe home here with my family. Jessica's face showed she finally understood. You want all the money back, don't you? Every single penny. Plus 2 years of rent you should have been paying me. The money you saved on childcare and extra money for hurting my feelings. I smiled sweetly. I figure that comes to about $650,000 total when you add it all up. Brian's voice was barely a whisper. We don't have anywhere near that much money available. Then I guess you'll have to get creative and figure it out. Sell the house, cash out your retirement accounts, get second jobs, do whatever you have to do. I shrugged. Or just declare bankruptcy and start over. Either way, you won't be doing it with my money anymore. Mrs. Henderson stood up, closing her folder with a snap. I'll leave you folks to think about all this new information. Dorothy, your new apartment is ready whenever you want to move in. As she walked toward the door, Karen called out desperately. What about Sophie? You can't just abandon your own granddaughter like this. I stopped at the bottom of the stairs, my hand on the railing. I'm not abandoning Sophie at all. I'm teaching her an important lesson about what happens when people try to cheat and lie to those who love them. She'll understand when she's older. I climbed the stairs to pack my belongings, leaving Michael and Karen to look at the ruins of their perfect scheme. Tomorrow, I'd start my new independent life. Tonight, I'd sleep better than I had in 2 whole years. Behind me, I could hear Karen starting to cry loudly. For weeks later, I was drinking coffee in my lovely new apartment overlooking Sunset Lake, watching ducks swim and families having picnics in the sunshine. The 1-bedroom furnished place was costing me $1,200 monthly, a tiny fraction of what I'd been spending on Michael and Karen's household expenses. My phone buzzed with a text message. Michael's name appeared on the screen for the 20th time this week. I ignored it, just like the other 19 messages. When it stopped buzzing, I read his latest plea. Mom, please answer your phone. We need to talk about this situation. This has gone way too far. Sophie keeps asking where Grandma went, and Karen can't sleep at night. We can work this out if you'll just be reasonable about everything. Reasonable? That was funny coming from someone who'd planned to have me locked away forever. I deleted the message and called Patricia at the bank instead. How's our legal case going so far? Slowly but surely. They've hired a fancy lawyer named Thomas Mitchell from downtown. He's actually pretty smart. Patricia's voice was careful. He's arguing that the money you gave them was a gift, not a loan, and that you can't suddenly demand it back now. And what did you tell him? That we have 2 years of evidence showing they treated you like a tenant paying rent, not a family member. Bank records, emails, even grocery receipts where you paid for food and utilities. The pattern of taking advantage of you is crystal clear. I smiled, settling back in my comfortable new chair. What else is happening? Mitchell filed papers claiming you're not mentally able to make these financial decisions on your own. They want a doctor to examine your mind. That wiped the smile right off my face. They're still trying to have me declared crazy and incompetent. It's their last desperate attempt. They know they're losing badly, so they're trying anything they can think of. Patricia paused. Dorothy, there's something else you should know about. They've been asking strange questions about Robert's pension and insurance money, specifically whether you knew about all the payments that were made. A cold feeling ran down my spine. What do you mean, all the payments that were made? I'm not completely sure yet. Mitchell hinted that there might be something fishy about how the insurance money was handled after Robert died. I'm looking into it right now. After I hung up, I sat staring out at the peaceful lake, worry settling in my stomach like a heavy stone. Robert had always handled our insurance and money matters. I trusted him completely, signing whatever papers he gave me without reading them too carefully. What if Michael knew something about the insurance that I didn't know? That afternoon, I drove to Sophie's school and waited across the street in my car until I saw her walking to the playground after classes ended. She looked smaller and sadder than I remembered. I got out and called her name softly. Her face lit up like the sun coming out, and she ran to me, almost knocking me down with her tight hug. Grandma, I missed you so very much. Why did you go away and leave me? My heart felt like it might break into pieces. I had to leave, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups make very bad choices, and other grown-ups have to protect themselves from getting hurt. Are you coming home to live with us again? I can't come back, Sophie. But maybe you could come visit me sometime at my new place. My apartment has a swimming pool just for kids. Her eyes got huge and round. Really and truly? Really and truly. Ask your mommy and daddy if you can come see me this weekend. I hugged her as tight as I could. I love you more than all the stars in the sky, baby girl. Don't ever forget that, no matter what happens. As I drove away, I saw Karen's car pulling into the school parking lot. She must have seen me talking to Sophie because my phone started ringing immediately. I didn't answer it. The doctor's appointment was scheduled for Friday morning at Dr. Sarah Peterson's office downtown. I arrived early, dressed in my best blue dress with my pearl necklace. I wanted to look like a smart, well-groomed grandmother. Dr. Peterson was younger than I expected, maybe 40 years old, with kind eyes behind stylish glasses. Mrs. Miller, I want you to know this examination was requested by your son's lawyer, but I work independently. My job is to check your mental health, not to take anyone's side in this fight. I appreciate your honesty, Dr. Peterson. For 2 long hours, she had me do thinking tests, memory games, and asked me questions about my recent choices. I answered everything truthfully, explaining my reasons for each decision I'd made about my money and living situation. You seem to have excellent memory and very clear thinking skills, she noted in her papers. Can you tell me about your relationship with your son and his wife? I chose my words very carefully. They're having money problems, and I think they saw me as a way to solve those problems rather than as a person with my own needs and rights. Do you think some people might consider your recent actions a bit extreme or harsh? I looked her straight in the eye. Dr. Peterson, if someone was planning to steal your life savings and have you locked away against your will, what would you think was the right thing to do? She wrote something down in her notes. Good point, Mrs. Miller. That evening, Mrs. Henderson called with news. The doctor's evaluation went great. She's recommending no legal guardianship is needed. But Dorothy, we have a serious problem that just came up. My stomach dropped like a rock. Tell me everything. I found out what that lawyer Mitchell was hinting about earlier. Robert had a second life insurance policy that was much bigger than the first one. $1.5 million that was purchased 3 years before he died in the accident. You weren't the only person who was supposed to get money from it. The room felt like it was spinning around me. Who else was supposed to get Robert's insurance money? Someone named Linda Chun. Does that name mean anything to you? The name hit me like a punch to the stomach. Linda Chun. Robert's dental hygienist from the office where he got his teeth cleaned every 6 months. The pretty young woman who'd always been extra friendly at the community health fair. She was supposed to get half the money, Dorothy. $750,000. The insurance company sent 2 checks. One to you for $750,000, one to her for the same amount. I sank into my chair, my mind spinning with confusion and hurt. But I only got $300,000 from Robert's life insurance policy. That's exactly what has Mitchell so interested. If Robert left Linda $750,000 and you were supposed to get $750,000, where did your other $450,000 disappear to? The pieces of the puzzle clicked together with horrible clarity. Michael had handled all of Robert's insurance paperwork after the accident. He told me the policy was only worth $300,000 after taxes and fees were taken out. I'd been so sad and confused after losing Robert. I believed every word he said. My own son had stolen $450,000 from me right after his father died. It looks that way to me. And if he's been hiding that information while trying to have you declared incompetent, it shows a pattern of stealing from you that goes back years. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of betrayal from both the men I'd trusted most in my life. My husband had been unfaithful to me emotionally and financially. My son had been stealing from me long before he ever tried to have me put away. The 2 people I'd loved and trusted most had both betrayed me in the worst possible ways. But instead of feeling sad and hopeless, I felt something else growing in my chest. Pure, clean anger that burned like fire. Mrs. Henderson, I said quietly, I want to completely destroy him. I spent the weekend planning my next move carefully. If Michael thought he could control me with hidden information about Robert's secret affairs, he was about to learn that 2 people could play that game. Monday morning, I called Linda Chun. According to the internet, she was now Linda Chun Williams, living in the suburbs with her accountant husband and twin baby boys. The phone rang 3 times before a woman answered with a tired voice. Hello, Linda. This is Dorothy Miller, Robert's wife. The silence went on so long I thought she might have hung up the phone. Finally, in a very quiet voice, oh my goodness, Dorothy. I wasn't expecting. I never thought. How did you find my number? I'm very good at finding things when I need to, Linda. I kept my voice calm and friendly. I think we need to have an honest conversation about Robert's insurance policy and the money you received. I don't know what you're talking about, Linda said, but her voice was shaking. Honey, I know all about the $1.5 million policy. I know you got half of it. What I want to know is what you know about my half of the money. Another long pause filled with tension. Your son told me you'd received your full portion of the insurance money. My son talked to you? When exactly did my son call you? He called me right after Robert's accident to let me know about the funeral and to discuss the insurance payments. I felt my heart beating faster. What exactly did he tell you about the insurance situation? He said you were having a hard time dealing with grief and that he was helping manage your finances temporarily. He said the insurance company had made a mistake and sent 2 checks when there should have been only one, and that I should just cash mine and not worry about it. The nerve and audacity took my breath away completely. Michael had not only stolen my money, he'd convinced Robert's secret girlfriend to help cover up his theft. Linda, that check you cashed was supposed to be split between us. Robert left us each $375,000, not $750,000 each. That's not what Michael told me at all. He showed me official-looking papers that proved it. Fake papers, I'm guessing now. I let that information sink in for a moment. Linda, I think we've both been tricked and lied to by my son. The question now is, what are we going to do to fix this mess? Tuesday morning, I was sitting outside Michael's workplace when he arrived for his job. His face went completely white when he saw me waiting on the bench by the entrance. Mom, what are you doing here at my work? Hello, Michael. Beautiful morning, isn't it? I stood up, smoothing my dress. I thought we could have lunch together today. There's so much we need to catch up on and discuss. He looked around nervously, noticing that his co-workers were watching us curiously. I'm really swamped with work today, Mom. Oh, I absolutely insist we spend time together. In fact, I already made us a reservation at Antonio's restaurant. You remember Antonio's, don't you? Where you took me to celebrate getting your promotion 2 years ago. His jaw got tight, but he nodded reluctantly. Fine, but I can't stay very long at all. Antonio's was crowded with a lunch rush, which provided perfect cover for what I was about to do to him. We ordered our food, talked about Sophie and the weather, and I waited until he relaxed and let his guard down. Then I smiled sweetly and said, I had the most interesting phone conversation with Linda Chin yesterday. Michael's fork clattered loudly against his plate. Around us, the restaurant hummed with normal conversation, while my son stared at me like he'd seen a ghost. I don't know what Linda might have told you about anything, he finally managed to say. She told me that you convinced her the insurance company made an error, that she deserved the full $750,000 instead of the $375,000 Robert actually left her in his will. I took a sip of my iced tea, enjoying watching him squirm. Imagine my shock when I realized you'd stolen $450,000 from me to cover up your father's affair with his dental hygienist. I was protecting you from getting hurt even worse, Michael said, his voice getting loud before he remembered where we were. You were already devastated after Dad died. Finding out about Linda would have completely destroyed you emotionally. So you decided to profit from my pain instead. It wasn't like that at all. I used that money to pay down our mortgage to secure Sophie's future. You would have just put it in the bank anyway. I laughed, a sound sharp enough to cut through steel. You stole nearly $500,000 from your grieving mother and convinced yourself it was for my own good. The selfishness is absolutely breathtaking. Michael leaned across the table desperately. Mom, please just let me explain everything properly. Dad left Linda that money because she was carrying his baby. The world stopped spinning completely. What did you just say? Linda was pregnant with Dad's child. She lost the baby in the 3rd month, but Dad had already changed his insurance to provide for the child. When she miscarried, he was planning to change it back, but then he had his accident. I stared at him, trying to process this new layer of betrayal and lies. Robert hadn't just had an affair. He'd gotten his girlfriend pregnant, and Michael had known everything all along. How long have you known about this? Linda called me right after the funeral. She was a complete mess, grieving for Dad and dealing with losing the baby. She showed me the medical records, the insurance documents, everything. And instead of telling me the truth, you decided to steal from both of us. I convinced her she deserved the full amount after what she'd been through with losing the baby. And I used your half to pay off our debts, so you wouldn't have to worry about money while you were grieving. The twisted logic was almost impressive in its selfishness. You stole from me to pay your bills and convinced yourself it was an act of kindness. Michael's phone buzzed loudly. He glanced at it and went even paler than before. It's Karen. She says Mrs. Henderson is at the house with official papers. I smiled widely. Oh, that'll be the criminal charges I filed this morning with the police. Criminal charges for what? Insurance fraud, elder abuse, theft by deception, and conspiracy. Mrs. Henderson was quite thorough in her research. I signaled the waiter for our check. You see, Michael, when you forge documents and lie to insurance companies about who gets money, that's a serious crime. When you steal money from your elderly mother, that's elder abuse. And when you do it while planning to have her declared mentally incompetent, well, that shows you planned it all along. Michael's hands were shaking like leaves. Mom, please think about Sophie and her future. If I go to jail, what will happen to her? You should have thought about Sophie before you decided to become a criminal and a thief. I stood up, leaving money for my lunch on the table. But don't worry about her at all. She'll be very well taken care of financially. In fact, she'll be getting quite a bit more inheritance money than originally planned.
What do you mean by that?
I leaned down and whispered in his ear. Linda's giving me back every penny that was rightfully mine. All of it. Turns out she's not as comfortable with stealing as you turned out to be. Michael's face completely crumbled. You can't do this to your own family. I'm your son, your only child. You're absolutely right. You are my son, and that's exactly what makes this betrayal so much worse than anything else. I walked out of the restaurant and got in my car, hands perfectly steady on the steering wheel. One more important stop to make today. The next morning, I sat in my apartment watching the local news coverage of Michael's arrest. Local man charged with elder abuse and insurance fraud, the news anchor reported. Michael Davis allegedly stole over $450,000 from his mother's insurance settlement while planning to have her declared mentally incompetent and placed in a nursing home against her will. My phone had been ringing all morning with calls from reporters, neighbors, and old friends who'd seen the story on TV. I ignored them all except for one very important call.
Grandma?
Sophie's voice was small and frightened. Mommy won't stop crying, and she won't tell me why Daddy isn't coming home tonight. My heart ached for this innocent child caught in the middle of all this adult ugliness and drama. I'll be right there, sweetheart. Grandma's coming to see you. I found Sophie at her friend Emma's house where Karen had dropped her off before going to the jail to see Michael. The 7-year-old looked lost and confused, holding her favorite stuffed bunny tight against her chest. Are you in trouble too, Grandma? I knelt down to her level, taking her small hands in both of mine. No, sweetheart, I'm not in any trouble at all. Sometimes grown-ups make very bad choices, and they have to face the consequences for those choices. Is my daddy a bad person now? Your daddy isn't a bad person, Sophie. But he did some very bad things, and now he has to make them right. That's how we learn to be better people. Thanks for watching Her Voice Unfolds. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below.